Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Happy Sunday and happy Memorial Day weekend for everyone who celebrates it, especially here in the United States. Big thank you to everyone who has sacrificed their lives and fought for our freedom here in the United States of America. Today, I want to go through a tweet that has been one of the most viral tweets I've ever seen on Palantir by my good friend, Matt Money. Matt gave this thread a while ago, and I was planning to make a video on it a couple weeks ago, but I just didn't get the time. Today, I'm making a video on it because I think it deserves more attention, and it's already gotten a lot of attention, given it is one of the most viral tweets I've ever seen on Twitter about Palantir, and it is about the misconceptions around Palantir's go-to-market strategy, how they acquire customers, and ultimately the comparison to what Shyam Sankar, the CTO of Palantir, said a couple years ago, which is that Foundry will become what AWS was for developers this decade. So let's go through the thread, and I'm going to give my thoughts. Palantir will demonstrate a drastic shift in how companies will operate going forward. Software for the modern enterprise, if you will. Yes, the company has only been in business for 20 years, but its modern products are only 10 years old and fundamentally misunderstood. This is correct. Now, this tweet got 77,000 views, 79 retweets. Obviously, got a lot of attention. Matt is correct when he says the company's been around for 20 years, but the product obviously has been misunderstood, mainly because it's only 10 years old, right? Like for the first 10 years, they were just figuring out how they could even build this stuff. And the last 10 years has been experiment in terms of how to get it into the market and make actual real use cases for it. Real Matt Money is his Twitter. I'll leave it in the description. You can definitely follow him if you care about Palantir. Now, he says, PG or Gotham is the eldest of the modern products for Palantir. Firstly, created for government, its tagline is the operating system for global decision-making, an environment you live in day-to-day to make decisions, started in 2013. And then we have sort of the history of the Palantir products. Foundry, an operating system I use every day, Matt works at an undisclosed oil company, is the operating system for the modern enterprise. Launched 6 years ago, it has been Palantir's most successful product to date. More applications, uses, additions to the operating system built every single year. Apollo was launched in 2020, used as the operating system for continuous delivery. Apollo is the SaaS operating system, allowing fast deployment of Foundry and Gotham OS applications to environments when and where necessary without interruption or downtime. Essentially the backend for a lot of people and developers who are sending out updates to their products. They can do it seamlessly through Apollo. It doesn't get as much airtime as it deserves, and honestly, I'm not sure exactly how well the growth is of Apollo, but it is one of the major operating systems that Palantir offers. AIP, and this was showed a couple months ago, to be deployed in 2023, is the user interface that will securely combine a company's proprietary data located in Foundry and Gotham with public data, allowing greater enterprise integration and penetration due to the ease of use for all company staff. This is kind of like the ChatGPT for the modern enterprise, secures your data, trains the LLMs on your data so that the data is proprietary, right? So if you're at a hospital, you actually have patient data that is contingent within the hospital, and it is securely trained in a way that allows you to then access it and use it for real-time intelligence. All are standalone products, but each has the ability to play nicely with each other. The company has reinvented itself and released products in 2013, 2017, 2020, 2023, and each of those products, as in the pictures above, add more capability to each operating system. I hear a lot of talk about how slow and long Palantir is taking to acquire new customers to sell the products. I firmly believe it is all in the plan. You have to take the unconventional or different path to see the unconventional or different outcomes. So Matt is basically saying, look, we talk a lot about how Palantir's go-to-market is not that strong. It's slow. It's, it fails in comparison to a company like Snowflake, which, to be honest, is, there's a lot of stuff to talk about when it comes to Snowflake right now in terms of how they're doing. But his argument is more of a contrarian view in terms of it's actually the exact right way, and all of us are actually undermining how they're going to market. So why am I going into such detail about release dates but not really saying anything useful? Okay, I want to highlight how slowly AWS started in 2006. AWS took 5 to 6 years before breaking the 1 billion annual revenue mark. Matt, why is this important? And as we see, AWS, now it's putting up close to $70 billion of revenue per year in annual recurring revenue, and it took about from 2006 to 2012 to crack the 1 billion ARR mark. Foundry has been Palantir's biggest success story. Launched in 2017, customer count has been exploding since. From 2Q 2021 to 1Q 2023, total customer count has grown from 79 to 280, a 250% increase in a matter of 2 years, which is correct. I mean, for all the crap we give Palantir in terms of their go-to-market, they have been increasing customers like crazy. Now, Snowflake has thousands and thousands of customers, so in comparison, it doesn't seem the same. But then when you look at the value proposition of something like Foundry and all the stuff that's required to be able to implement that into an organization in terms of the consulting, et cetera, to increase that 250% in a matter of 2 years is actually pretty phenomenal. In the past 3 years, average top 20 customer revenue has gone from 27 million to 51 million, an 89% increase and 250% customer count increase. Get the picture? Performance hasn't been as bad as it is. And as we're seeing, the average revenue for top 20 customers is up 34%, and average TTM revenue per top 20 customer is up 14%. He then furthers to say the United States commercial business, mostly Foundry, just hit 1 billion annual run rate in 6 years. Think through this whole thread. Sound familiar? AWS took 5 to 6 years to hit 1 billion. Is Foundry done? Just began, in my opinion, and they released their Amazon Alexa AIP. Now, this is really important because if Sham and team are comparing Foundry to what AWS will become, and AWS took 5 to 6 years to get to that 1 billion, Foundry did kind of the same. And for 3 of those years, the company wasn't even public. So if it started in around 2017 and around 2022, we got to that 1 billion, I think 1.5 or whatever we did in revenue last quarter or last year. That's, pretty much on the same timeline around AWS. And for 3 of those years, we weren't even a public company. So we were operating purely in stealth mode. Another thought, have any of you worked in a company these days and realized how inefficient data and processes are being taken care of? These are multi-billion-dollar organizations using tabular data entry like SAP and Excel to run their business. Revolutionary in 1990. This is also a good point by Matt because he works in a company that has massive amounts of data, especially in the oil space. So he's looking at how to deal with this stuff, on a day-to-day basis. And when he's looking at other companies using SAP and Excel to run their businesses, he's like, all right, if my company is becoming more efficient because we're using this, I wonder what the market is for every other company in the world to do that. It's 2023. The modern operating system used to manipulate and split data using operating systems and ease of decision-making overcome the Windows OS release of 1990. The step change in capability from Foundry's OS to Windows is comparable to what AWS was for the internet. And remember, AWS introduced cloud computing. The reason Netflix has been able to do streaming is because they had a cloud computing provider like Amazon Web Services that was able to host all of that content and all of the bandwidth in order to be able to stream that content. You don't get Netflix or Spotify or all of these other companies that use AWS if you don't have AWS, right? So it ushered a new wave of how we thought about the internet, which is why it's been so profitable for Amazon. The rumblings you've heard about Palantir will be reminiscent of the rumblings in the 1990s about Microsoft, 2000s about Amazon and Apple, 2010s with Netflix and Tesla. Palantir is here to stay. It has the culture, capability, and mindset to be the next AWS. The company has their ear to the street. They do not sell application software. They sell solutions. Once you realize that, it will take your mind off of a buffing up a sales team or product sucks to realizing this is new. This is different. How much runway is there? And then he goes on to just say, thank you for listening to your thoughts. I think his last sentence is really important, right? They sell solutions. Once you realize that, it will take your mind off buffing up a sales team. And I agree with him more now than ever as I've seen Snowflake's earnings. I've done a video on this and I'll link it in the description, but Snowflake, not only are they not meeting expectations and they're citing macro headwinds, whereas Palantir is not citing anything macro related, they're citing more demand than ever. You have to ask yourself, are Palantir and Snowflake fundamentally different businesses? And I would say yes, but that's not how the street thinks of it. The street thinks of it as they're both SaaS businesses. Snowflake is a $46 billion valuation, Palantir barely hitting $30 billion. So the market is obviously giving Snowflake a premium because of their growth rate. But then the question becomes, if they're not growing to meet their expectations and they're citing macro headwinds, whereas Palantir is in one could argue the infancy of their growth, and they're not citing anything macro, they're saying there's more demand than ever. Why isn't Snowflake saying there is more demand than ever? Frank Slootman on the earnings call did not say that. He said there were macro headwinds. And so when you got a company that already has a very rich valuation that's seemingly, as Matt said, just selling basic products, not really a solution to your issues. Not saying Snowflake's not a solution, not saying it's a bad company, not saying any of that. Just saying, is it the revolutionary data-driven operating system that fundamentally transforms an enterprise? And by the way, for a company to adopt that, they have to have a specific culture. The reason Snowflake can be in 8,000 companies in terms of clients is because not all those companies have that culture. It's a plug and play, download it, boom, you're set up. For Palantir to be in 370 customers or whatever we have, all of those companies have had to have a mindset shift, i.e. Tyson, Tampa Bay General Hospital, Hertz, Cardinal Health, the CDC, right? They had to believe in this vision in order to be able to adopt that software into their organizations to be able to get that change. So when Matt says they're actually selling solutions, not just what the rest of the street is selling or the rest of the companies on the street are selling, I believe him, especially because he's someone who uses this product on a day-to-day. He actually just recently had an AIP demo as well, and he was blown away by what he's going to be able to do. So, when you compare something like Palantir to AWS in terms of just the pure ability for those platforms to scale and generate massive, massive billions of dollars in revenue, in 2014, Amazon was not obvious. And you had 8 years to see what AWS was doing. And those who were studying AWS from 2006 to 2014, when they finally made the investment in 2014, it's done very well for them. Very, very well. But the question is, did you know what AWS was? Because if you didn't know what AWS was, then it was just a failing retailer that, yeah, it had prime service, but it had zero margins and they were losing money on every, piece of toilet paper that they sold. Until you realize all of that is just to get people to realize what the actual business is about. And then they were able to kind of scale from there. If we think Foundry can become what AWS is, or AIP can become what AWS is, then it takes a little bit of learning. It takes years of being able for them to scale, which they've already done 5-6 years to be able to get to that 1 billion ARR. And then eventually, could it produce something like $60 billion? I don't know. Maybe. But if we think the AI market is exploding, if Karp says the TAM is $900 billion across, the entire world in terms of what governments and organizations would spend, and we think cloud computing is essentially proven, you've got your three winners, GCP, AWS, and Azure, and they're going to continue to grow, but it's not going to be the growth that there was from 2006 to 2015, then there is a lot of room for an operating system to be built on top of those that is cloud agnostic, platform agnostic, that can actually do more for your business than just store the data, which is basically what you're doing when you're paying for compute. So it'll be really interesting to see how Palantir plays out. And if it is something like an AWS, then it might just end up being that thing that we all hope it can become. Let me know your thoughts and comments. Definitely check out Matt, Real Matt Money on Twitter. I'll leave his link in the description. Definitely worth a follow if you care about Palantir stocks, investing in general. He's also a member of the Palantir Weekly podcast, so you guys probably know him already. But I thought that tweet was really good, and that entire thread kind of highlighted that sales might not be the issue because the product they have is actually that good. And sales is something you can fix. You can't fix the product. Like when AWS was made, yeah, you can sell the crap out of it because it actually works. And when Netflix and Spotify are buying AWS, and they're it works. The biggest companies in the world are using it. If Palantir can keep scaling with a product that actually works, the rest of the biggest companies in the world might one day adopt it because eventually it's just a good product that you have to have as a competitive advantage in your organization. And on June 1st, I'll be streaming live all day. We're going to see AIP in action, and we're going to really see how many clients across the world could potentially use AIP. It'll be very interesting to see AIP Conference, which is newly named outside of Foundry Conference, and how that product is going to end up going into some of the biggest companies in the world. Leave a comment below about what you think about this Twitter thread, and I'll be streaming AIP Con June 1st, and we'll see what AIP can really become. Thanks for listening and watching. I'll see you in the next one.